Alright, what up dudes? Today I'm going to bring you my kits for the Teen Titans, as well as one secret 6th character for my DC Rivals roster. Now before we get into these kits, do me a favor, go on down and hit that like and subscribe button. And as always, if there's anything you do differently, or if there's a character you want to see next time, leave a comment down below. Now I'm not going to waste any more of your time, let's go ahead and rip it with our first Titan. Now I know it's technically Robin in Teen Titans, but I wanted to leave that slot open for Damian Wayne, so I moved Dick Grayson up to Nightwing, which also allowed me to flesh out the Bat family for a team up later on. Starting out with the duelist, his primary fire is the Eskrima sticks. These act as dual baton-esque strikes similar to what we've seen from Moon Knight or Black Widow, if you even remembered she had a second weapon. These also have a special property to deal double damage to any character that's stunned. For his secondary, I gave him Electro Wingding. This is where Dick throws a Wingding, which is a tiny rebranded Batarang, and if he hits an enemy, they're stunned and slowed for a second, giving him an opening for his primary fire. Onto his first ability, we have the Flying Grayson. Named after the Grayson's family name back in Circus, this ability is a massive leap that Dick springs into and uses his grappling hook to continue mid-air. That way when Dick is deep in the backline going for squishies and starts to get low, he can launch himself back to his team. I like to imagine it sending him back about the length that Venom's swing can normally launch him. Then we have Charged Up, where Nightwing clicks his sticks and activates their electrical cores. When activated, the first time he hits a character, he stuns them for half a second, just long enough to crit on the second hit of the combo. Additionally, this also gives him a second use of his Wingding for the duration. Next is Not a Sidekick, where Dick kicks off an enemy, shoving them back and launching himself. If the enemy hits a wall, they take additional damage. This push isn't nearly as strong as the Flying Grayson, but it does create some distance that Dick can work with. I see it more as a soft disengage that can be mixed with his other flip in order to get the hell out of there. Onto his passive, I gave him Acrobatic Past, where Dick can double jump, climb up walls, and run along walls. For some reason, in past characters, I made this an ability, but it's always a passive, so I don't really know why I've been doing that. Anyways though, moving on to his ultimate, Electro Field, where Richard releases a massive cone of electricity out in front of him, stunning everyone in the area for just a few seconds, with a similar AoE to Black Panther's ult. As for team-ups, I will be covering all of those at the very end of the episode after all the characters have been introduced. Now for a section requested by you guys, where I'm going to go over the playstyle that I had in mind when making the kit. Now for Nightwing, I see his playstyle as a bit more of a brawl or flank style character, where he would sneak around in a similar vein to Black Panther, finding squishies in the backline, stunning them with a Wingding, and then creating an opening where he can pounce on them with his sticks and then use Charge Up if he needs more damage or to get a second stun out, ensuring a kill. Now, let's say the team peels, that's where Flying Grayson comes in. It enables him to fly out of there, making sure that unless they use an ability to pull him back, he's gonna get out of there. However, it's only really like one person that's coming to peel for their support, then Sidekick is all he would need to keep them back and finish the kill on the support, and then try to get out with Flying Grayson. Overall, I just kind of see his ult as either a combo extender or an escape vehicle. With a larger area of the stun, I wouldn't make it very long, but I do think it could have some playmaking potential in higher ranks where you're talking with your team and planning out your combo ults. For his cosmetics, I would love a Robin colored suit, obviously a Red X skin, and the red version of Nightwing suit. I believe it's New 52, but I'm not 100% sure on that.
I am sorry to disappoint you, but I am stronger than I look.
Starfire is one of the Titans I didn't really know much about since I was more focused on Beast Boy and Raven as a kid when I was watching the show. But in doing research for the kit, I really enjoy her character now, and I think she'd fit perfectly into DC Rivals. For her primary fire, I'd give her Starbolts, where she fires out green blasts that pierce enemies, just like in the show. For her secondary, I'd give her Star Bombs, where she creates half a dozen green orbs that explode when they hit the ground, dealing knockback. Onto her first ability, we have Eruptive Sphere, where Star creates a bubble around herself that blocks a certain amount of damage before exploding, dealing more damage the more it was hurt. Onto her second ability, we have Shooting Star. This is just Corey's movement ability. All flyers have it. It just allows her to glow and move faster in the air. Similar way to Human Torch, just faster. Her third ability is also inspired by Human Torch with Comet Strike, where Corey slams down onto the ground before exploding and reactivating any star bomb clusters on the ground, causing a second activation of the ability. Onto her passive, I came up with Tamaranian Physiology. Due to the impact emotions have on the powers of the Tamaranians, I decided to give her a damage buff whenever an ally is eliminated. Additionally, I would make this stack, so that if she's the last one left on her team, she can deal some insane damage. For her ultimate, I gave her unlimited star power, where Star charges up a ball of green energy in her hand and fires it like a Kamehameha blast. This damage pierces through shields and people, dealing heavy damage while not restricting her movement, allowing her to fly around and re-angle and reposition to make sure that she continues to apply pressure. I imagine this kit playing in a similar way to Storm or Torch in Marvel Rivals, where she flies around trying to pierce through as many enemies as she can to build up her ult charge, while using her star bombs and comet strike at the same time for burst damage on the area. Then she can use her shield to absorb some damage and back off, or absorb the damage and finish off a kill. I see her ult being used more to apply pressure to a team, causing them to back off. For her cosmetics, I would love a Blackfire skin. I'd also love a live action skin, since I actually enjoyed that show. I'd want her base skin to be similar from what we see in Teen Titans in the TV show, but I know they'd make her a Gooner skin like Malice, inspired by her original design.
What's the matter? Afraid of the light? No! No! My suit! What are you? No, stop! You win! I surrender!
What's the matter? Afraid of the dark?
I surrender! No!
Now it only makes sense for Raven to come after Starfire. I wanted to make her kit unique, since it would have been really easy to just make her a DPS and give her nothing new. Instead, I opted to make her a Vanguard. However, for her design, I would have her hitbox be primarily made up of her cloak, like what they should have done with Emma Frost. For her primary fire, we have Abyssal Bolt. This is a long-range spear of black magic that explodes whenever it hits an enemy, and a similar radius to Bucky's primary. Her secondary is called Calligraphic Projection, where Raven chooses 2 points and creates a shield out of the ground that can be seen through on Raven's side, but not on the enemy side. She has 4 points that she can put down, but only needs 2 to create a shield, allowing her to split it up however she wants. Now before we get into her first ability, I have to go over her passive, Abyssal Buildup. Raven has a meter at the center of her screen that builds when she takes damage, which she can then release by using her first ability, Hellish Rebuke, where she expels the buildup and damages everyone around her, giving herself overshields dependent on the damage she deals with it. For her second ability, we have Demonic Transmutation, where Raven enters her demon form, gaining 200 extra shields and a damage resistance for the duration. During this time, she also has a new primary and secondary fire. Her demonic primary is Ravenous Cleave, where Raven slashes forward with her claws, dealing big melee damage in a small arc and sending her slashes forward for 15 meters. For her demonic secondary, I gave her Trigon's Reach, where she fires an arm made entirely of black magic that can grab an enemy and drag them back to Raven. All her other abilities remain the same, she just becomes a bit more brawl heavy instead of her typical poker bunker style. For her ultimate, I gave her Princess of Azeroth, where Raven speaks her incantation and becomes a massive demonic bird. It snatches enemies as she flies through them in a straight line, forcing them to go with her, and at the end she wraps them all up in tentacles, slowing them down and giving a free use of her demonic form. This ultimate basically turns her into an enormous bird version of a Reinhardt charge, where she can steal away an entire team if it's aimed correctly. I see this tank Raven playing similarly to Emma Frost, where she plays at range behind cover or her shields in a more bunker style until she sees an opening. Then she goes into her brawl heavy demon form for a few seconds, using her rebuke ability to finish off foes or regain some health back in a pinch. For her ult, I see it as a way to clear off a point or bundle up enemies to combo with another teammate. For her cosmetics, I would love to see White Raven. I'd love a take on a Lady Legacy skin, and a live action skin as well, because hers was fairly unique, and I'd adore a new 52 inspired skin.
I'm an animal. Who's the tough guy now?
Now for Beast Boy, there was just so much that I could do. He is single-handedly the reason why this video took so long. Originally he was a strategist, and then he was a duelist, and then made a kit where he had an animal form for each role. If you watch my duelist video, then you'll understand what I mean when I say I feel like he has the same amount of potential as Deadpool. And if you guys are interested in seeing some more of that potential, I would love to do an entire video themed around him. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. But this is my favorite that I came up with Garfield taking up the Vanguard role. For his primary fire, we have Quill Shot. This is where he generates porcupine quills on his arm that he fires out through a gauntlet that Cyborg made for him. It's kind of like a needler, but it doesn't explode afterwards. Beast Boy doesn't have a secondary because he acts as the Bruce Banner or Baby Diva of this roster. Instead of having one tankier form like the Hulk, he instead has 3, each with their own style of tanking. Before we get into those 3 other kits, let me tell you about the other 2 abilities that Garfield does get to keep no matter what form he's in. Technically starting on ability 4, we have Buzz Off, where Gargar turns into a bee, and flies away in a similar vein to Hela's bird, but he can direct it midair. For number 5, we have Garo Spore, where Garfield turns his head into a tiny version of Starro and fires out a spore that turns anyone it hits into a harmless animal tailored to the character. So Catwoman would become a cat, Batman would become a bat, and so on and so forth. Okay, now for his 3 different animal tanking forms. Now we got a lot to get through and don't got that much time for Beast Boy, so buckle up, we're going through them fast. Ability 1, we have Gorilla Form. This is Garfield's dive tank form. It's a new primary fire, Primate Punch. It's a gorilla punching people, and the final hit deals additional damage. Secondary, we have Boulder Hurl. This is where the gorilla cracks the ground, tosses a big ass rock that stuns and knocks down anyone it hits. For the first ability, we have Aerial 8, where Garfield launches himself into the air and grabs any enemy in the air as well. Upon landing, he slams into the ground with an AoE damage burst. For his final ability, I give you Rhythmic Drumming. This is where Beast Boy beats on his chest and gives everyone around him overhealth. However, he gains more health depending on how many allies he affects. For his suggested combo, I'd recommend using the Rhythmic Drumming to get a ton of health, leaping into the backline, Boulder to stun a squishy, melee them to death, in a similar vein to how Hulk works. Ability 2, we have Octopus. This is his anchor tank or bunker style tank form. Primary fire, we have Octo Punch. It's a 20-meter long punch similar to Mr. Fantastic. Secondary, we have Cephalopod Shield, where he holds up his tentacles and blocks incoming damage in a similar vein to Ramatra, but instead of having resistance to damage, it's an overall shield similar to Captain America. Next up, we have Inky Blot. This is where he shoots out an ink blast that blinds enemies or coats the ground, making enemies fall down if they use a movement ability inside the area. He has multiple of these, like Penny's right click. And for his final ability, we have Neptune's Call, where Gargar screeches out, giving all allies around him a damage buff, including himself. During this time, all damage dealt by Beast Boy and his allies heals the shield faster. For his suggested combo, I imagine him using his shield to block damage from his team, and once an opening appears, he would use the call to buff his team and deal burst damage while using the Ink Blot to either block an exit or stop enemies from diving his backline. For his third form, we have this Brawl Tank form, the Rhino, not to be confused with the Spider-Man villain. For his primary, we have Horn Strike, a powerful strike that knocks up enemies on its final hit. Secondary, we have Goring Lunge, where he delivers a short but explosive lunge that can be charged up to increase how hard it hits and how far it knocks enemies back. If there is a wall behind an enemy when they get hit by this and they get knocked into it, then they get stunned. For his first ability, we have Savannah Charge. This is where Gar impales up to 3 people on his way by. If he runs them into a wall, they deal insane damage, but it gets split among them, making it easy to kill one squishy, but if you catch a tank, then they're going to be fine. However, if this ends before hitting a wall, he launches them forward, chucking them as hard as he can. For his final ability, we have Territorial Fury, where Garfield as a rhino roars, granting himself a slight damage reduction and everyone around him a movement speed buff. For his suggested combo, I would imagine Garfield using the buffing Shout to move faster so his charge is quickened and catches enemies off guard, also allowing allies to come with him. As he goes in, he breaks up their formation, and if needed, he can use his right click to finish off any skewered squishies by charging them into a wall and then immediately goring them back into said wall. For his passive, we have Conduit of the Red, which just allows him to turn back into his human form after one of his tank forms are eliminated. Similar to the Hulk, but instead of it being an ultimate, there are just 3 abilities that have a 25 to 30 second cooldown he has to wait for. That was a lot. We're not done yet. So for his ultimate, Rexy Rampage, Gargar turns into an enormous T-Rex and takes pieces of each kit, giving him an insane HP pool and a massive damage increase. For his primary fire, we have Cretaceous Combo. He's a T-Rex, it's a bite combo, he can't punch with his arms. Secondary, it's Thunderous Roar, but it's a sonic blast that deals damage through shields, similar to Hawkeye's Sonic Arrow from Marvel Rivals. Ability 1, he has Savage Charge. It's the Rhino Charge, but he puts people in his mouth. He doesn't have the 3-person cap, and the damage does not split. For Ability 2, we have Tail Sweep. This is a knockback attack that sweeps out and sends people flying. Whew. For his cosmetics, I'd love to see Red Beast Boy like his original design. And I'd love to see any Savannah style or oceanic based skins that would change his animal forms into something similar.
Whoa, Cyborg! It's really you! You're my favorite, cause look! You're just like me!
Yeah, I guess I am.
Cool!
Nice meeting you, kid, but I got butt to kick.
Cool!
Okay, now we can slow back down to cover Cyborg in depth. I originally had him as a vanguard, but upon doing my research, I realized just how often he plays in the backline, strategizing with Robin. And I couldn't just make all the Bat fam strategists. So Cyborg is the one and only strategist for the Titans, which means he's already doing better than the Avengers. For his primary, we have the White Noise Blaster, a ball of plasma that explodes, dealing an AoE of healing. Onto his secondary, Nanobionic Repair. Vic has a resource meter that depletes in order to heal himself. During this time, he has a slight damage resistance, but is not prohibited from using his primary fire. For his ability 1, and my favorite of his abilities, I give you Star Converter, where Victor fires out a machine that latches onto an ally and makes their primary fire heal allies as it goes through them. This has absolutely no effect on melee characters, but Cyborg can still accidentally attach it to them. For his movement ability, I came up with Boosters. This is where Cyborg turns his feet into rocket thrusters and becomes a flying character with doubled movement speed for a few seconds. I imagine this would work similar to Ultron when he comes out, but we don't have footage to work with for that, so that's just my speculation. I wanted to give him a stun to help with getting dove, so that's where Electronet comes in. Cyborg launches out a web that wraps up and stuns enemies, freezing them in place for a second. And as for his passive, I came up with Half Machine. Since Cyborg is only half machine, half man, he is immune to being blinded or bled. Finally, his ultimate, Mother Knows Best. This is where Cyborg summons the Mother Box, and it creates an enormous dome where everyone inside of it gains constant healing and is shielded from outside damage. However, enemies can still walk through the shield in order to damage Cyborg's allies. As for how I think this Cyborg would play, I can see him being a bit more of a main healer that comms to his DPS like Starfire to utilize the Star Converter to help pick up some healing without hindering their DPS's potential. And for the ultimate, I could see it being used in a similar way to Invisible Woman's ult, where you can use it to save a team fight, secure a point, or force the enemy team to walk through the shield in order to get up close so they can contest it. For Cyborg's cosmetics, I would love his live action design, his comics design obviously, as well as a grid skin. I think that would just be really cool. All right, that's all the Titans. But this wouldn't be a Rivals team video if I only did 5 people. I mean, there's 6 in a team. So it only seemed fitting to do one of the best villains the Titans have ever faced.
Looks like you got my invitation. Just you and me. Come on!
That's right, we're doing Deathstroke. Now, Slade Wilson is easily one of the most dangerous villains in the DC universe. Having all the powers of Deadpool without the quirky humor makes him into a soldier hell-bent on finishing his mission, and a perfect duelist. For Slade's primary fire, I gave him Mercenary's Oath, a quick-firing efficient rifle similar to what we've seen from Punisher and Soldier 76. As for a secondary, I came up with Shredder. This is where Deathstroke flicks a switch on his gun, turning his ammo from rifle shots into shotgun rounds, for a few seconds, allowing him to shred down tanks or anyone in his path. This does not reduce his fire rate. For his movement ability, we have Death Stride. This is where Slade charges forward with increased movement as long as you hold shift. He can also leap into the air, sprinting around similar to Captain America. Second off, we have Bow Staff Sweep, where Slade extends his bow staff and sweeps it out, knocking back everyone in range. Onto his third ability, we have Hunter's Mark, where Slade can choose an enemy, know their location through walls, and they take slightly more damage from Slade's attacks. This lasts as long as Slade does not lose line of sight for longer than a few seconds. For Slade's passive, I gave him Healing Factor, allowing him to slowly regain HP if he hasn't taken damage for a few seconds. And finally, for Slade's ultimate, we have the Deathstroke, an ancient Scottish warblade and Slade's first and favorite sword. This is a larger AoE sweeping attack similar to what we've seen from Magic or the Dragon Blade, but this one builds up a bleed effect, and once it procs, it takes a massive % of the character's maximum HP. And while ulting, his secondary changes to Rushing Cleave, where Deathstroke dashes forward, slicing through everyone, adding up his bleed counter. I couldn't really think of any cosmetics for Deathstroke that wasn't just his helmetless skin. Let me know in the comments down below if there's any ideas that you have for cosmetics Deathstroke could wear. As for team-ups, I couldn't really come up with much. Nothing really felt right when it came to making a team-up that encapsulated every single Titan. So, once again, I want to ask you guys, what would you give the Titans for a group team-up like the Fantastic Four? The only team-up that I was able to come up with was the Bat Family, where Batman gains a healing and damage buff, and Nightwing gains detective vision. He can scan the area for invisible characters or people behind a single wall and view them for 3 seconds. But yeah, let me know what you guys would do for a Teen Titans team-up combo. Thank you all so much for watching. That was the Teen Titans plus Deathstroke that I developed for my roster in DC Rivals. I'm pretty proud of them. I think certain things could have been done better. So as always, let me know what you would have done differently or who you want in the roster next. With all that said, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.